Hi and welcome to Movies Suck. Today we're having another look at Joker and another take on Joker from this particular writer. It's a rather curious take on Joker and not one that a normal person would have come up with because it's just so out there. This is a take on Joker that a person who's obsessed with a certain racial characteristic would have taken. And I've actually checked it in other places and it turns out he actually did like the movie. But he decided to focus on a very, very, very specific issue that is actually a specific issue for his entire life. This person's life is based entirely, without doubt, without any other surrounding areas of interest, around this one single subject, as I've found by looking a cursory look through the things that he does, and his actual normal work, incidentally, as well. But enough of that. I'm not going to look this person up on screen. I'm not going to say who it is, although you can obviously look this up yourself anytime you like. So please don't contact him or complain to him about this, because I'm going to do enough complaining here for everyone. For everyone in the entire world, probably. But let's read a bit further and see what he's got to say. It says, Joker would have been a whole other story were the central character not white. Interesting idea. It probably would have been a whole nother story if the central character had not been white, because it wouldn't have been Joker, would it? It would have been something completely different. It might have had the same sort of thing within it, but the character would have been different entirely. That goes without saying. I mean, this story is also on the New York Times if you actually subscribe to that rubbish. I would suggest you don't. I mean, let's face it, no one needs that crap in their life. It's bad enough I'm here, on The Independent. Jesus. Sorry. Took the Lord's name in vain there. I won't do it again, unless I do, in which case, yeah, whatever. So, despite what director Todd Phillips wants to say about mental illness, or class divisions in American society, this film is essentially a depiction of what happens when white supremacy is left unchecked. What? I'm sorry, did I miss the white supremacy in Joker? Yes, there are a lot of powerful people that are white in Joker, but those are not the focus of this movie. Even Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father, is not really a focus of this movie. The focus of this movie is the person that appears in virtually every single frame of the movie. Almost entirely every single frame. This film is so character-driven that almost nobody else appears within this film. And frankly, even if they didn't, I don't think it would bother anyone. Because this film is about one person, and one person only. It is about Joker. And that person is obviously played by Joaquin Phoenix, doing a masterclass of acting for this role. There are some mental case people who might disagree, but they're mental cases. That's why they disagree. So let's read a bit further. Before Joker opened last weekend, much was being made of how its tale of a murderous villain echoed news stories of mass shooters and incel threats, which were all just nonsense. They in no way related to other mass shooters and certainly didn't relate to incel threats. What incel threats? Go have a look out the window and find Antifa. They're a real threat. And if you're living in Portland, a bloody serious one. And how the film might encourage unbalanced viewers to commit acts of violence. As it turned out, it mainly inspired audiences to open their wallets for the biggest October opening ever. Yes, it did. And this is the important thing. The majority of people thought this was a fantastic film. They went and told their friends, did you see that? Did you see Joker yet? And they said, no. I mean, I was thinking about going to see it, but they said, it's a great film. Go see it. You have to go see it. And so it became a massive hit. And deservedly so. This is a great film. I advise everybody who has the time and the inclination to go to a cinema. Not everyone does these days. Cinema has been on decline since like the 1950s. It's picked up a bit. In America it's done well, but in Europe it's certainly been in decline. So go see this film. I advise everybody to do so. And I imagine all your friends who have seen this film would advise you to as well. So, after watching the film, I could understand the concerns. Directed by Todd Phillips and starring Joaquin Phoenix as the deranged clown Arthur Fleck, the title character Joker is simultaneously a well-made film in its own right and a blatant mashup of The King of Comedy and Taxi Driver. It nods at classicism and winks at the Bruce Wayne family mythos, but at its core, the movie is about a mentally ill loner. Okay, I'm not going to take any umbrage with the idea that it's a mashup of Kings and Comedy and Taxi Driver. Everyone who's seen this film is going to relate those two because they kind of have a very similar feel, and I think that's a deliberate thing. I will take slight issue with the idea that he's a mentally ill loner. We do know that Arthur Fleck is a loner, but this does seem to be down to his mental illness because the interactions we see him have with the other clowns and things implies that he's not that bad in a group. I didn't get the impression that if you stood him in a room full of people, he would be stood in the corner trying to avoid everybody. I didn't get that impression from Arthur Fleck. I think that he'd have done about as well as your average not able to relate to other people very well person would. And the reason he doesn't relate to other people well is because he has the laugh, which freaks people out a lot, and simply that he just looks a bit off, which is probably not his fault. I just do take issue with the idea that he was a loner. Mentally ill, certainly. Loner, I don't think that's his choice. I think that's been forced upon him by the way other people treat him. Still, what struck me most is that what the film wants to say about mental illness or class divisions in American society is not as interesting as what it accidentally says about whiteness. Accidentally says about whiteness? Did this film say anything about whiteness? Did anyone else pick up anything about whiteness that this film was specifically trying to say? I know those three guys that worked at Wayne Enterprises were all white, and maybe that was a casting choice, or maybe that was just what they felt it was going to be like, or who knows, but I don't get the impression that they were doing this deliberately within the movie, or that the movie itself was wanting to say something specific about white people. And what specific thing does this person think it wants to say about white people? Or whiteness, apparently. Okay, for it is essentially a depiction of what happens when white supremacy? White supremacy? Really? In Joker? Did anyone notice the white supremacy in Joker? Was there rampant gangs running around beating the hell out of black people? Or other Asian people and things? People with signs walking along saying, other nations out, white people in, we don't want the other people. No, I didn't see this anywhere in the film. Did you see this? Please comment and let me know if you saw this stuff specifically, because I missed it. Oh, man. So, when white supremacy is left unchecked, it shows the delusions that many white men have about their place in society and the brutality that can result when that place is denied. Whoa, okay, I know this person is absolutely, unbelievably race-obsessed. You might want to guess what colour they are. You'd be right. But this person is unbelievably race-obsessed. This person reads race into everything. This person probably can't see a black car and think that that person was in some way racist, and then sees a white car and thinks that person who owns that car is also in some way racist. But he would obviously see it from the same point of view each time, just different colours. This person can read racism into just about anything and everything. And at one point were white people in this film thinking about their place in society and that it is being denied. Is he talking about Arthur Fleck here? Arthur Fleck is a person who's been extremely put upon within this film. He's badly treated at almost every turn, and he suffers from mental illness, which means that his perception of the way he's treated is even worse. He actually seems to be doing pretty well considering being mentally ill and suffering for the way he did. He seemed like a okay-ish guy on the whole. Alright, somewhat mentally ill and a bit crazy, but who isn't a bit crazy this day and age? What is it about white men's place in society and the brutality that can result when that place is denied? He's obviously saying that Arthur Fleck feels that he should be doing better in society because he's white. And at what point did Arthur Fleck mention that he's white? What point did Arthur Fleck have any interest in how white he is? How did that come into the film? He is, because that's just the nature of the character, but how did this come into the film in any way, specifically over this occurrence, this unchangeable characteristic? It's a very strange idea. And brutality? What, when he attacked some people because of his place in society wasn't good enough, though most of those people being white? At no point in this film did we see him kill a black person, so he wasn't attacking them to secure his position in society. So it's a very strange idea. And it says, okay, let's read a bit further. The fact that Joker is a white man is central to the film's plot. In what way? It's central to the film's plot in that Joker is white. The Joker has always been a white character. So in that way, it is central to the plot, but not central to the character. You could have written this as any mentally ill person, and you could have written exactly the same story. Exactly how is whiteness, as this person likes to say, a useful characteristic that is the major plot device of this movie? A black man in Gotham City in 1981, suffering from the same mysterious mental illness as Fleck, would be homeless and invisible. Entirely possible. It's lucky for Fleck that he lives with his mother, which is probably why he even has a home. I don't think his mother lives with him, I think he lives with his mother. So that is why he has somewhere to live. Another mentally ill person. Two mentally ill people in the same house. Why is this person trying to deny these people's vulnerabilities and the reason that they should have a home to live in at all? And trying to equate that to a this is a theoretical black person who would be homeless. He's in no way gone in any distance to proving his case in this area. And be homeless and invisible? Well, let's face it, Arthur Fleck in this movie is basically invisible. He's been treated by the psychiatrist that we see because he recently came out of a mental hospital. And I imagine he has to have checkups. He has to write a diary. We find that out. So he's getting these checks, and then that is taken away from him because they take away the funding for the program, and that also is taken away from him. So yet again, he becomes completely invisible to society. So he no longer even gets his medication. That's how invisible he becomes further on. He still has a home, although after he loses his job, how long would he have that for? We don't know. He might become homeless very shortly afterwards. So he wouldn't be turned into a public figure who could incite an entire city to rise up against the wealthy. Black men dealing with Fleck's condition are often cast aside by society, ending up on the streets or in jail, as studies have shown. Which studies? Where I looked, I couldn't find them. I couldn't find anything specific, and let's face it, population of America is mostly white. So we know that there are vastly more white people suffering from mental illness in America. There are going to be vastly more white people that are homeless and suffering from mental illness in America. This person must be talking about a percentage, and he's using studies that he hasn't cited and I cannot find. So I cannot prove one way or another that those studies are correct or even exist. I suspect we're looking at hearsay for this particular question, and we know that it's incorrect anyway because due to population, there are bound to be far more white people suffering from these problems than there are black people. As a percentage, possibly black people are suffering more, but this is in no way relevant to this movie. Arthur Fleck is suffering enough for this movie, and he could easily be homeless with mental illness and no medication very shortly after this movie had these events not occurred the way they did. So this person is really, really stretching here. He's stretching so far he can't see his hands to see what the hell it is he's trying to reach. Don't you hate this sort of thing? People just try to read whatever their own particular psychosis is into this. It's the same with the media, the way they decide to hype this up based on their own particular psychosis. This person is no different. They can't just watch a great movie, a great character study. They have to read their own biases into the things that they're looking at. Gone are the days when people were even-minded and well-balanced. People were even more even-minded and well-balanced back in the 1980s, which this person seems to be kind of trying to deplore. And though Fleck says he often feels invisible, had he been black, he truly would have been, except, of course, when he came into contact with the police. They would be sure to see him. It's true that black people are often more maligned among the police than white people, but this is due to the fact they commit a disproportionately large number of crimes. There are studies on that too, should this person wish to look them up. I won't cite them, he hasn't bothered either. And it's very unlikely that he would have been invisible. I'm sure the state would have done badly for him as it did badly for Arthur Fleck. Though Fleck is pursued and investigated by Gotham's finest, his whiteness acts as a force field, protecting him as he engages in the violent acts in the latter half of the film. No, it doesn't. What protects him is the inability to prove that he had committed any kind of crime. And of course, lucking out, I guess, with his mother having a bit of stroke at the same time they were trying to investigate him, which made them go a little bit more leniently on him, I'm sure. and the fact that they really had nothing on him. They had no reason to suspect him particularly. And let's face it, the police, if you're from the UK, the police will find any reason to try and chastise you in some way for something that you might possibly be doing, what with the fact that absence of a crime does not mean that no crime is being committed. If you want to look more into that, look up Crime Bodge's website. You can see a lot more about that sort of thing in British police. Consider his appearance on the live talk show hosted by Murray Franklin, Robert De Niro. A black man acting as strange as Fleck does would not have been allowed to go on the air, but the white Fleck is given access and bloodshed soon follows. I'm pretty sure that had a black person been on here, he would have been either treated the same way or treated preferentially, as seems to happen in modern society. I doubt there would be any kind of change whatsoever. This yet again just feeds into this particular author's bias. And that bias is deep and strong, given his work. And let's face it, nobody on that talk show expected Arthur to do what he had done. They didn't have any good reason to say, no, you can't come on the show. I'm sure that after speaking to him, they were a little bit thrown off by his character, but they had no reason to expect that sort of thing was going to happen, so they had no reason to think that he shouldn't go on the show. They thought they were just going to have a guy they could laugh at. Or look at how Fleck interacts with others. He is frequently in conversation with people who occupy a lower rung in society than he does. Really? Were there many people that he was in conversation with during that movie that occupied a lower rung on the hierarchical scale of life than him? Really? Which people? Where? When? Because I don't think I saw any. I saw people that were basically on a similar level due to his mental illness. That puts him a bit lower down than just about everybody he spoke to in that movie. I don't know who this person is trying to refer to. Let's have a look at what he says here. A state-appointed therapist he sees early on. How did she occupy a lower rung in society than him? She had a job. She had a life. A good job. Alright, maybe she wasn't being treated as nicely by the Gotham City as she would like, but she was a hell of a lot higher up on the social chain than Arthur Fleck was. A protective mother who chastises him for playing peekaboo with her son on the bus. How do we know she was supposedly on some sort of lower rung than he was? By the fact that she is a black woman on a bus? What does that prove in any way, anywhere, ever? This woman was clearly not necessarily on a higher level than Arthur, but we could in no way prove that she was on a lower level than Arthur. We don't know if she was a single mother or anything like that. She was just a mother on a bus. For all we know, her family was rich. Seems unlikely, I admit, but we know nothing about that lady in any way, so can in no way inform ourselves over that decision, that she might in some way be on a higher or lower rung than he is. This person is really, really reaching. A neighbour who lives in the same building, and why is she on a lower rung than he is? She seemed to be doing okay. She seemed, I don't know for certain, but she seemed like a single mother, but she certainly in no way seemed like she was doing very badly. And I would hazard to say that she was certainly on a higher rung hierarchically in society than he was. She probably had a much, much better job than he did. A much more secure job than just being a clown for occasional events when you're lucky. So yet again, in no way conclusive, in no way can anything be proven. This guy is just using his colour as a reason to assume. And assumptions are dangerous. And then the psychiatrist he sees at Arkham Asylum. So, in what way was she at a lower level than he was? How could she possibly be? She seemed very, very much more educated, very, very much more wealthy, and very much more well off in every way possible, especially the way that she wasn't a mentally ill person having to be looked after in a mental asylum. Because at this point Arthur has no home, no mother, no family that we know of. He has nothing at this point, whereas I suspect she had just about everything. Yet again, I'm making an assumption, but my assumption is based on as closely to possible as facts. It says every one of these characters is a black woman with whom he eventually has confrontations. We are unaware that there was any confrontation with the lady in the hospital at the end, in Arkham Asylum. We assume there was no confrontation with the lady on the bus, except in that she confronted him and was a bit cruel and mean to him. He in no way confronted her. Confrontations we can speak about are his neighbour in his apartment building, And who else can we talk about here? His therapist, there was no confrontation with her. So far, one confrontation that we can speak of. I don't know if this is intentional on Philip's part, but it is significant. When we learn that his relationship with Neighbour, played with artful restraint by Zazie Beetz, was merely a figment of his troubled imagination, the way he leaves the apartment implies that this realization has led Fleck to kill her and perhaps her child. After his final conversation with the Arkham doctor, his bloody footsteps suggest he killed her as well. The thing about his neighbour is that she had done nothing wrong to him, unless, this is important, unless his delusion about her was so strong that he felt that she really had walked out on him and things. But I suspect this is not the case. I suspect the reason we don't hear anything from her is because he left her apartment without causing any problems. And I come to this solution based on how he treated the midget that we see in the film that was working with the clowns. Because that guy had done nothing to hurt him, so he did nothing to hurt him in return. And I imagine this is how Arthur would treat most people. If they've done nothing to him, he would do nothing to them. His neighbour is slightly up in the air based on the fact that he was having mental delusions about her. But since we know nothing about the occurrence, but we do have evidence that he does not hurt people who did not hurt him, we can assume that she was fine and she doesn't feature any further because she no longer holds a place of relevance within the story. So that's the most likely reason why we don't hear anything more of that. But then again, this person could be correct. He might have murdered her and her son, but this would be because of his delusion rather than any other reason, and I suspect he wouldn't have murdered the child at all. And then, of course, they mentioned the doctor at Arkham Asylum, which suggests she was killed, but we have no way to prove. I would guess that that is the case. But she was in no way killed for any other reason than she was a therapist and probably didn't get his joke. What relevance does her colour have? None. None at all. Fleck kills white men because he cannot access their status and is ostracized by them. But his black female victims are so invisible that the film does not bother to show their deaths. We as viewers can and should take note of them. Well, he killed the people on the subway because they were being bullies. They were attempting to bully him and torture him and be cruel and hurt him. He in no way killed them because of their status. That is just a really reaching, crazy assumption. He had a gun, he had means, he had motive, and he had the opportunity to commit those particular murders. But the reason he did it was because he was being bullied. That's it. He had been bullied a lot, he'd had a bad day, he was bullied some more, and he had the means to avenge himself. So where does race come into it? It doesn't come into it. This person is talking rubbish. There are other ways that whiteness informs Fleck's character. He anticipates he'll be treated as a son by the Wayne family and assumes that he'll be given medical records just by asking the hospital orderly, played by the great Brian Tyree Henry. I'll have to look that up later. I'd like to know why he's great. I'm not saying he's not great, he probably is, but I'd like to see what else he's in, because if he's that great, I want to see him do some more acting. The privileges that come with Fleck's race set him up for these unrealistic expectations. When they're not met, the consequences are deadly. No, this is not the case. We all know that Thomas Wayne is extremely privileged, and it would be nice for Arthur if he managed to gain some of that privilege. He saw a way that might possibly get him out of his situation, and he thought it was important. Everyone would. They suddenly realised, what, Thomas Wayne is my father? I can actually contact this person. So he tried, doing what a normal person would do. He was rebuffed, and he found out details about his parentage that really upset him. And he didn't just assume he would be given those medical records. He tried to get the medical records. He hoped that the black person, Mr. Tyree Henry, Brian Tyree Henry, who I'm looking forward to finding out more about, would tell him what the records said. And he did actually start reading them, but then he changed his mind due to, important documents need to be allowed out by, in this case, I assume, the therapist. So he stole them. He at no point gave him the impression that he was expecting to be given them. Just Yes, I expect he will just give me these documents without any kind of authorization at all. No, he didn't do that in the film. He just took the opportunity to get hold of them because he could. He might have lost that battle over the little tug of war, and then he'd have run away anyway. He'd never discovered that. So this is yet again just reaching and reading things into things that don't exist due to this person's particular mindset, a very, very, very specific mindset, as I've mentioned earlier. It says whiteness may not have been on the filmmakers' minds when they made Joker, but it is the hidden accomplice that fosters violence on screen. I don't think so. This is a strange assumption to make. There were a couple of black people who might very well have suffered badly in this movie. There were greater numbers of white people that suffered. There is no way to prove that one way or the other, since the black people weren't killed on screen. Should they have been killed? If they were killed, we can't prove it. But in no way did race have any relation to their deaths. This person has really, really stretched himself to try and reach this. And if you have a look at the comments here, just about everybody else believes that he was just stretching and talking rubbish as well. And to be honest, when you have a mindset that this person does, and you read race into everything, specifically your own race, and how you are hard done by, then I can understand why he's come to this conclusion. He admits that this is a great movie, so that's great. But he does choose to have his own biases involved in his analysis of the movie. And that's fine as well, but we've got to call him out for it and show how unbelievably biased he actually is. Because if you don't tell these people, they don't learn. Look at the comments here. That's completely false. The movie would have been the same movie if Joker was a black man. Exactly correct. The movie would have been exactly the same. It would have been Joker, because that's a specific character. But it could have been, I don't know, Brian, or something like that. It says, I really think the author mixed up the terms white supremacy and white privilege. There is a huge difference, and the latter definitely makes a whole lot more sense with what they are trying to say in this piece. I still wouldn't agree with the article, but at least the terminology would be correct. I agree with that as well. If you wanted to exchange white supremacy with white privilege, I wouldn't have been quite so shocked about the whole supremacy thing, because that's just crazy. I do believe that there was a little bit of privilege going on in there. I don't necessarily agree that it's white privilege. I think it's moneyed privilege was what Gotham was suffering from. Those with money have the privilege, those without, well, they had to suffer, like poor old Arthur. If Fleck was a black man, wouldn't that be a little controversial with a Joker wearing white face paint? Yeah, it probably wouldn't have been as controversial. People would have gone, oh, did you see that? Because, let's face it, this stuff is a one-way street. Okay, that's enough of this. You can find this story on The Independent. It's very easy to find, or go to the New York Times if you're that much of a sucker. And I will catch you guys later. This is Movie Sucks, signing out, and I'm gonna go and not read anything about the Joker for a little while, because this stuff is just really, 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 really dumb, and I've had enough of mainstream idiots trying to portray this as something that it's not. You guys have a great evening. I will catch you guys on the flip side.